Have you ever wondered why we have EpiPens and not Benadryl pens? Come on, I'll show you. Hello and welcome back to White Line Medicine. Thank you so much again for joining me here on the series that I'm doing on allergic reactions and anaphylaxis. So we just finished up the pathophysiology portion, learning about what's happening within the body. Now we're on to medications and treatments. So first up on this list, we're going to be going over epinephrine. Before we dive into how and why epi works, let's first sit down and understand how we administer it and what kind of package it comes in. Epinephrine, also known as adrenaline, comes in two concentrations, 1 to 1,000 and 1 to 10,000. Now keep in mind that these concentrations have the same amount of medication within each, just the 1 to 10,000 is more diluted. Standard dosing is 0.3 or 0.5 milligrams for adults, or 0.01 milligrams per kilogram up to a max dose of 0.15 milligrams for pediatrics. Now, if you're administering an EpiPen, those doses are actually standard across the board, and adults are 0.3 milligrams and pediatrics are 0.15 milligrams. Now, of course, make sure you're adhering to your local protocols and guidelines before administering epi to a patient. When given IV, epi has an onset of less than a minute, and its peak effects are typically within 2 to 3 minutes. If you give it IM or intramuscularly, that has an onset of about 1 to 3 minutes, with a peak effects noted typically around 5 minutes. Lastly, if you give it sub-Q or subcutaneously, it typically has an initial onset of around 5 to 10 minutes with peak effects noted around 20 minutes. Alright, now that we've covered that, let's dive into what epinephrine does once it's in the body and why this is our frontline medication for giving in anaphylaxis. So first of all, epi is a potent vasoconstrictor. That means that it's helping to combat the vasodilation that's happening throughout the entire body. Now, that's helping to proactively increase our blood pressure and increase perfusion for our vital organs. Next up, epi is a bronchodilator. This means that it works on the small airways to increase their size, opening them back up and allowing more air to come in. This helps combat or prevent any hypoxia that has occurred. The last thing that epi does, and this is the coolest I will say, is that it actually goes throughout the body, finds the mast cells and basophils, and binds to them and stops the degranulation process. This makes epi the only medication that we give that actually stops everything that's occurring. So every other medication is really just mitigating symptoms. Epi is the only medication that stops the process. So how does your company or agency treat anaphylaxis? Do they use the same dosing, or is there other medications that they give? Let me know right down below in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Alright, that's it for this episode. But you might be asking yourself, if epi is the only medication that stops anaphylaxis, why do we give all the other ones? Well, we're going to learn about that and a whole lot more coming up here in these next videos. So make sure you stay tuned by liking and subscribing right down below. Follow along with us. And as always, thank you so much for coming along and learning with me today at White Line Medicine.